So we're going to go ahead and start the regular North Shore Board meeting, Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Amy, if you could start us with roll call.
Yes, good evening. Commissioner Admin.
Here.
Commissioner Pratt is on his way. Commissioner Byers.
Present.
Commissioner Webster is not here. Commissioner Woolham.
Present.
Chief Cowan.
Here.
Legal Counsel Aaron Hayes.
Present.
And I'm Board Secretary Amy Oakley.
Amy, did you get any emails with public comment?
No advanced emails.
Okay. And then is anyone there in the room wanted to make a public comment?
Yes, we have one person in person.
Perfect. Mr.
Oh,
Mayor, you've
And
got.
I'll just announce that Commissioner Webster is joined the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. So Mr. Marin, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time to speak to the board.
Sorry.
First, I want to thank the chief for the documents he posted prior to the meeting. It was helpful seeing that information ahead of time. And I did send some questions to the chief, and I want to compliment him on his prompt response. I know he's busy, so it takes a lot of effort to make sure that happens. I'm mostly here just to listen to the discussion. There's a lot that you can't tell. I mean, for instance, we don't get to see the shoreline budget that the North Shore budget is extrapolated from. But a couple things. One, on the reserve funds, it appears that there's some additional money in there, and I was curious where and what was going to happen to those dollars. And the other thing was on the capital expenditures. It was my understanding when the ILA was signed that Shoreline was allowed to use the North Shore buildings for free. And they accepted the building in the as-is condition, and they agreed to take care of any maintenance items that occurred at the buildings. And some of these, like the security cameras and the panic doors, those seem to me to be maintenance items instead of capital purchases. I just asked the board to kind of take a look at how those are distributed. North Shore would still pay 1/3 of those costs because 1/3 of the overhead of Shoreline gets billed to Shoreline as opposed to 100%. Anyway, thank you again.
Thank you. And Amy, is there anyone else that you can see that would like to make a public comment?
Not in the room, but I will announce that Commissioner Pratt has joined the meeting.
Thank you.
I have also joined the meeting, Rick Webster.
Yes,
Thank you, Rick.
We announced.
Hey.
So can I get approval of the agenda?
Move we approve the agenda.
I can second.
Thank you. So now we move on to the public hearing, budget, benefit charge, and other revenue sources.
First a vote on the approval.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Everyone in favor of the approval of the minutes? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. So now we're moving on to the open public hearing. Chief, is this where you wanted to step in and kind of take over?
Sure. I was just gonna walk through some high level notes as far as some of the funds and then or some of the expenses. And then we need to determine what we want to do with some of the extra funds. So if we can start with thank you. Just go ahead and that one. So, and I reviewed this
As a legal.
last week as well in our other meeting. I've updated the notes off this the preliminary budget summary. There's a few things I needed to update as far as.
Sorry, I was trying to chime in. We should have an official statement just for the record that the public meeting is now open on the budget just before we launch in. So we make it clear that we started and where we've ended today for just the public meeting for the budget.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we're going to open the public meeting and it's regarding the
Hearing.
budget, benefit charge and other revenue sources.
Public hearing.
Public hearing, thank you.
Sorry, Chief.
Okay, so these are the notes. They changed a little bit. I just updated some of the numbers as far as where we're at. I did get some increased AV today. So I got the most up-to-date numbers earlier today. Went up a little bit further. We're looking at what's that? Oh, that. Yeah, that would probably help.
You can
Although-
do, Amy, if you click more, you can do hide flooding moving controls.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. No, that's fine. Where was I gonna say? Assessed values have gone up a little bit more. It was at 8.3, it's gone up to 8.4%. That changed some of the other numbers a little bit, but they're roughly about the same as what we had before. The financial outlook is, again, it's roughly about the same as what you had before. It dropped the equivalent overall levy rate by just a, 1/10 of 1 penny. But everything else was about the same as what you've seen before. I'm gonna go through this, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Any questions on that?
I don't have any.
Are you gonna go through some of the details as we go through some of the worksheets?
Yeah, so
Okay.
when I get to the expense sheet, I was gonna go through that, and then even more importantly, the capital.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And we can go back to anything, any questions that you guys have, I'll be happy to try and answer. So I'm gonna skip the fund balances now and AV to go to, it's really small, but yeah, let's zoom in a little bit here.
You can make the faces as well.
Yeah.
You can see that you can do a little $1 thing, it'll make them smaller.
Oh, okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so, wrong one. So we went through and I really picked on Dawn to help me out here with some historical context and all that. And so she looked at these, and so this is the Board of Commissioners expenses. And the big part of our budget is the transfer to Shoreline, but there is about almost 400,000 in the legislative budget, or the Board of Commissioners budget. So there was a nominal increase in the salaries, which drove some of the benefits, the PFML, LNI, Medicare, et cetera. Office supplies stayed the same. General legal services, we increased it a little bit, just from like a CPI standpoint. The Neil Blindheim with Interface Systems, their fee went up a little bit. We're actually a little over budget, I think, for 2024 because it had gone up. Leadership retreat for the chair of the board. Meeting meals, there's just that's more of a placekeeper than anything else. Insurance went up a little bit by 6%. The audit, we're not sure where the audit is going to be for 2025. We believe that it'll go down though after this next audit. The audit this year was nearly 19,000. So that's why I put 19,000 in there. It's a bit of an unknown because it depends on what how they treat it and what they look at. Dawn, put these in for the ad valorem tax. The fire benefit charge collection fee, that's what the county charges. The rest of these fees and taxes, Dawn was the one that put these in, looking at history and so forth. Bias annual maintenance, that went up a little bit. So did AV capture, Zoom, MailChimp, and we put 1,000 in for other, only because we seem to have overspent a little bit there this year too. Cell phones stayed the same. Commissioners' salary stayed the same. These fields are auto-populated from the commissioner's salary. and $150 per commissioner for clothing. Seminar, conferences and seminars, we kept at the same level, bumped up the food if we end up hosting a county commissioner meeting. Again, we bumped up on the miscellaneous registration for conferences, seminars. There was some desire for to add a couple. The memberships, let's see, they stayed roughly the same. Nemco though,
Go ahead.
oh,
That was my question.
so, okay. Nemco, we're in an interesting situation with Nemco. So as you all know, NUD opted out. That changed the partnerships and the contributions. And at the time, there was going to be an ask for increasing the amount that North Shore paid into Nemco. I did not. Emergency management is a city function, it is not a fire department function. And for us to divide it up equally did not seem appropriate to me. So I approached the other, Lake Forest Park and Kenmore. And I said, I am going to do a in-depth look at what I believe is the value or the amount of value that we're gaining from what Kevin Lowry and Nemco was offering. And we got a range of hours. We went to the high end of those hours and we put a dollar value to those hours. And that's why it's 15,000 and it's down quite a bit from before. And we're still, offering an office space, although we are getting tight on office space.
Yeah. Was that the driver for Kenmore to look at opting out, or were they already looking?
They were already looking at it.
My understanding now, I may be mistaken, but is that they're kind of as a placeholder there in their budget process, they're basically going to continue for another year.
They're committed to 2025. They're also, Rob has committed to having a decision by spring-ish as to what 2026 is going to look like. They have stated and they have to give at least 1 year notice. I offered up, I said, I don't need a 1 year notice if it would help keep them in and keep it going. If they wanted to give a notice, sometime in 2025, just before we get to budget, and all that, I would be willing to do that. But nonetheless, they still gave notice. They gave notice that they're out at the end of 2025 with an opportunity this spring, if they decide not to give us notice that they're not going to be out. And so
my question is so I'll just state my perspective is that I feel like there's been a lot of value from Nemco, even if that's not our primary responsibility as a fire department. I feel like from what I've seen and heard and observed and members of the community who participated in Nemco, I feel like there's been a lot of value in Nemco.
yeah, I'm not saying there's not value.
Right. So what I'm saying is, in the grand scheme of our budget, that's a pretty much a drop in the bucket, relatively speaking, our contribution level. I guess I'm wondering just if our decrease in contribution is going to have an impact on Nemco funding. Like, will it, inhibit Nemco's ability to continue through 2025 if we don't budget enough funding?
No, we're fine for 2025.
Even with this reduced proposed amount.
Yeah, they've already absorbed. So
the city stepped up their contribution.
Correct.
Okay, so we're still okay with Nemco for
Correct.
2025.
2026 is the question mark.
Okay.
So 2025, it isn't an issue. I don't believe, because I asked the question and I believe that they were being, transparent and honest with me, that the amount of our contribution was the problem. The problem is that Kenmore does not feel like they are getting as much value, attention, and so forth from Nemco, from Kevin Lowry. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but there might be a communication breakdown here as to really what their value that they're getting between Rob and I can't remember, their staff person's name. But they might be getting more than they're thinking that they're getting. And so what we have encouraged, what Phil, with Lake Forest Park and Mike Harden and myself, is we really encourage Kevin to get out there and make sure that the communication is there, that the representation is there, and that and see if this is really a value issue or a communication issue. And part of this evaluation is for Kenmore to go through the process of looking at their options of what it's going to take for them to hire an emergency manager to do what basically the things that they're getting out of NEMCO and what that cost is versus what they're contributing to NEMCO.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
and that's what they're going to evaluate before spring.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of our meeting time on this, but that was my question, and because as somebody who lives in Kenmore, I kind of feel like.
Right.
If the city's gonna opt out, I'd like to make sure they have a better alternative ready to go.
Well, and the bigger issue is actually Lake Forest Park as well. Because if Kenmore is out, NEMCO is done. I mean, there's no reason, for Lake Forest Park to be in a partnership with North Shore for emergency management. I told Kenmore, or I told Rob, I said, if you guys truly are out of NEMCO in 2026, I would really encourage you and Lake Forest Park to work together to figure out what you guys can do and share some resources. I guess my point, and the reason why I was reevaluating what we pay is because, like, for example, like CERT teams and so forth, that's not a fire department function. That's an emergency management division function under the city. Auxiliary, radio, all of those things are part of a city emergency management, preparedness function, not the fire department. Fire department is really actually a division of emergency management, and we focus on fire department operations and helping out in certain areas like the EOC and things like that. And that's why I looked at, and this was collaborative. We did look at, we did share all the evaluation that we did with the amount of hours and so forth. And so it dropped, I think it was like, what, 32,000, 43. I think, well, no, I think our estimate was originally like 32,000. And so we dropped it to 15.
Okay.
If you'd like to pay more, we can pay more. This was my, I shouldn't say mine. It was our evaluation that this was an appropriate level for the value that we were getting that is actually a fire department, responsibility.
Sure, yeah, I might just ask some follow-up questions myself over the city.
Sure. And
Okay.
I don't know if it kept Kenmore in it. I don't know if another 25,000 or 40,000 is gonna keep Kenmore in it. They really actually they really want to focus on having their own person. So
Their plan is to stand up their own emergency management division.
Yeah.
Or a manager, yeah.
And what's the manager do without
Staff.
staff and equipment? And
this is where Eric is going with in the details. You're absolutely right. And this is the conversations that we've been having. It's like, we strongly encourage you to go look at what you're going to pay to get whatever versus what you're paying now and getting the value that you're getting from NEMCO before you just pull the trigger and you're out. So that's why they're doing this over the next, 5 or 6 months. They're going to do an evaluation. That's what I've been told.
So can we table this and continue on with the budget
Sure.
discussion?
Sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, elections education, this is $10,000 for education material. 80,000, I highlighted the ones that are we don't really know, we're taking more of a guess at. So we have the February, assuming we move forward with the RFA, we have a February ballot measure that we will need to pay for. And then
what was the election in 20?
I don't know if those notes have been updated.
Sorry, I haven't updated that note, sorry. Yeah, some of these notes I haven't updated. I update the notes a little bit after we're done so that we know for like next year, when we look at this. So
Sure.
Sorry, I was explaining. I was just planning on explaining. So we have a February ballot measure, and that we will pay for. What's interesting about this is so if we had an election going on tonight, typically we don't even pay until the next year. So you have to almost look at the next year's budget as to figure out, when those impacts are. So, but we will, assuming that we move forward, we'll have at least one ballot measure, in February. So, and then we get into the funds.
Can you walk us
So-
through those transfers just a little bit?
Okay, so these are tracking what we're moving around, and this is more for Dawn, and knowing what she needs to make as far as transfers. So the reserve fund, and I'll get to the fund balances here in a second, but the reserve fund, we're okay. This is the unplanned rainy day fund. The capital projects, this is auto-populates from the capital fund, the expense sheet. This is the retirement payout. Oh, and we're doing okay on our left one retirement liabilities. The transfer in at least. So we don't have to transfer in for that. That number there is the retirement payout. That before the ILA occurred, it's 94,000 and I think 94,009 per year. We have 2 more left next year and the year after. And Don was like, why don't we just budget for it and pay for it all this next year and be done with it, because tracking has been kind of a difficult thing for her. So budgeting for both. This is the net annual payment.
So, chief, it's 94,000 a year, but in 2024, we paid 116.
I don't know why that would be. I would have. And there isn't a note here. I will find out. Well, either way, either way, it's an obligation, but and you could punt. We could punt on it. There was another reason I can't think of right now as to why she wanted to pay it this next year. Can't remember. This is the amount, the net transfer into Shoreline to cover personal costs and equipment as part of the contract. It's not the full amount. The full amount, if you look on your summary sheet, is the 13,792,464. That towards the top. The net is the 13,792,464 minus the BLS transports to GMT, King County EMS money, and the portion of Shoreline contract revenue. So that's the net.
What's the portion of Shoreline contract revenue?
That's because we entered into a contract with Bothell for executive level services. We get some revenue in that, so I'm sharing that. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm sharing that revenue with North Shore.
Gotcha.
And mobile integrated health care went up a little bit. So the total was 386,527. And and if you that's the commissioner portion of the budget, and then of course the big part is the transfer for Shoreline. So do you want to talk about capital now, or would you like to look at the summary? Or actually I should probably go to the capital because then we can come back to the summary and it might make more sense. So for the capital expenses, for this column here is what was proposed. This is what our recommendation from the executive team for adopting. 500,000 more for the Rescue 151. That gets us close. $100,000 for staff vehicles. We have a couple of old Trailblazers to replace. There's wireless installation on a couple of our apparatus that we need to put in. And here's the IT equipment. And Zeb populated these after looking at these. Well, he proposed all these. There was one thing I knocked out because I didn't think it was necessary. I can go through all of these and try and explain them, but the door locks here, he's gradually trying to get all the door locks to a punch, like the one we have on the inner door. I didn't feel like they're expensive, and so I didn't feel like it was necessary for all doors to get that way. I asked them to look at exterior doors and doors where we needed to track or you restrict entry a little bit further. For example, my office, if you really want to get into my office and start, trying to rifle through, drawers or whatever, most of the stuff I have is digital. It's saved behind my profile, behind the firewall. And I don't see somebody risking their career to break into something like that. So I think we have some higher levels of security, like the server room and things like that we want to protect, and exterior doors so that if you don't have your key or whatever, that you can get back into the building. So he asked for 22,000. I can support 8,000. The rest of these, I left some of these blank and I left them here because these are ones that might come back in future years, but there isn't any expense in 2025. Like, for example, computers. And in fact, he put a little note here. Next purchase will be in 2026. We don't have to buy any computers this next year, but monitors, MDTs, tablets, a printer, no laptops this year or this in 2025. The Cisco warranty, we don't have to pay for ESO records retention next year. Modems, they're out of date and there's no support.
Scroll up just a little bit, you're staying with the Surface tablets for ESO rather than an Apple product?
Yes. It's what's working. I can't tell you more.
I just know that ESO is transitioning to having a native iOS app for ESO. And so if you're already running Apple products in other places in the organization, that they're significantly less expensive to have as your ESO tablets.
I can try and find out the.
Yeah, I mean, just about.
Yeah.
This is how Shoreline's operating too. So part of this is some.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I
continuity.
don't want, I'm not suggesting that North Shore should be different, but something to think about for the organization.
Okay. Let's see, where was I? Security cameras, upgrading and replacing some of those so we get better coverage. There's electronic door locks. Backup batteries for I think this is for the server in there. And then we have first arriving software and hardware. The Cisco power supplies, they're expensive. And we don't have a need for any LCD projectors for next year. Equipment, the SCBAs, there's only one expense in SCBAs this year. Again, I left them all there because they might come back in future years. And that's just to buy some masks for new hires. I deleted all of the equipment general because I don't knock on wood, I don't believe that there's going to be any more equipment that needs to be purchased to get caught up. I think we're caught up with everything that we needed to with the apparatus.
What falls into equipment general?
Nozzles, hose, fittings, ticks, fans, chainsaws,
Suppression.
everything. Yeah, tons of equipment, general equipment. So I deleted all of them because I don't believe that I left the heading, but I don't believe I'm going to need to, to do this again in the future. Facilities, this is the big one, and we still have some questions, on this. We've deferred. We budgeted for some of these things this year. They either far exceeded what we budgeted or the complexity of replacement or the project itself. So some of these things we're deferring, even though we budgeted for them, we're deferring actually to even 2026 because our plan for next year is, and it's down at the bottom, is to pay for, to do an RFQ, and we've talked about this in the board, to do an RFQ, to get an architect and engineering firm, to be able to scope out some of this work so we have a better understanding of what the budget looks like and be able to actually get it done. An example of this is our ongoing challenges with the 57 generator. Yeah.
I have a question on that one. I just happened to talk to one of the Snow 10 commissioners yesterday. Cause they just had to replace, they had a similar situation, they had to replace a generator at station 44.
Mhm.
And they originally were looking at a diesel generator and it was gonna be more costly and kind of long term. Take longer to get it. They actually ended up going with a natural gas generator.
Mhm.
And they had a vendor that sounded like it was much cheaper and was able to be done promptly. And I don't know like what the scale and scope of station 44 compared to station 57 in terms of like power needs and so on,
There's a difference.
but you know, it might be worth having Chief Hochstein follow up with Bothell and find out what they did for 44, if there's like a vendor that, you know, that we're not aware of or something that maybe could help us with the situation, because it seemed like they were able to get it done fairly quickly and for.
Yeah, they did. One thing I would be very hesitant about is going to natural gas, because that's the infrastructure that'll probably get broken first
Mhm.
in an earthquake or something, and that's when we're gonna need the generator. So, and the plan, like especially here, is to have a bigger diesel tank that we can fuel up with, but also can feed into the generator. I mean, this is long term.
Sure.
So there is some pluses, and there's some pluses to going with natural gas. But there's also some pluses going with diesel too.
Sure.
Um,
I said I'd bring it up.
no, I think it's a good, I mean, and that's exactly what we need to do in 2025 is to look at all our options and actually come up, instead of just like, oh, let's go buy a generator. Well, we wanted to go buy a generator and it's 400, I mean, it's ridiculously expensive. Not only just to replace it, but then to do it right, we have to look at what circuits need to get, replaced and so forth, or I don't know, whatever they do with the electrical. So we're budgeting, for some of these projects, we're deferring to 2026. Some of them we're doing in 2025, but at the very bottom here, we're budgeting, I think it was 76,000. 76,400 for an architect and engineering contract fees. We don't know how much it's gonna cost, but I gave somebody I work with a list. I was like, just give me a ballpark. I need to put something in here to figure out what we're potentially gonna need to spend, and that was the number that he came back with. But I'll go back up to the top here and work my way down. We're deferring on this 51 HVAC boiler replacement. We triggered the lighting project for 2024, but we didn't do it. Or it was proposed, but we didn't do it. The 51 server suppression, we need to replace the sprinklers that are over our electronic servers or electric, and replace it with it's not Halon anymore. It's a different agent that's safe for the servers. Doing the same thing at 61. The original bids were 25,000. They're coming back now at 45,000. So, the 51 outbuilding, that's the training building that we did. We budgeted for it for this year, and 500,000 is not going to be enough. But the bigger, issue is that, I was planning on, having other departments that are coming in and using our facilities help pay for that building. And now we don't have, Kirkland, for example, is going to South County for academy work and things like that. So we don't have a revenue stream in there, so it made this less viable. So it's one of those things that we need to really evaluate for next year and figure out if we're going to just not do it at all, or when or what we're going to do. So I left the line item, but waiting, a question mark, waiting until 2026. Would like to get the carport done though. That would be a big help for us in protecting our vehicles out here, and it's not as expensive. The 51 generator fuel tank, I just mentioned that. Again, we budgeted like $20,000, and we don't know if it's gonna be $200,000 or more, but this is one of those projects for next year that we need to get a better evaluation and engineering on.
That's like, we're trying to just continue to use it for another year.
Yeah, the problem that we have is that the fuel
We
tank.
identified it last year in 2020.
This is the fuel tank. The problem that we have with this isn't that the generator's dead. It's that it only runs for a couple hours and then it's out of fuel. And we need better resilience, so we'd like to, get a bigger tank or tie it into a bigger diesel tank or whatever we're going to do with the generator. So it's a different situation here than it is at 57 with the generator there is every time it runs, every time it runs, we have to send Patrick over or somebody over to reset it and get it running again. It needs to get replaced. And so that's still on here. But this one, the generator here can wait until 2026. And when we can get a better number for the fuel tank and what the circuit or the system that we need to get in here for that. And the same with the 51 fueling, that'd be tied into, into this generator fuel tank replacement. I got 400,000 for next year on this 57 generator. That is not all of it. I'm just letting you know. There's going to be more in
Keith?
2026. Yes?
I have a question on our, you had 500,000 sitting aside for the building for the school.
For training, yes, this one.
Yeah, the outbuilding. So what did we do with that carryover, that 500,000?
Well, that's why we're carrying over extra money right now.
Okay.
And,
Right.
and why we have extra money. And I'll just tell you right now, my proposal, my suggestion would be to roll it all into capital. Because we have some bigger bills coming. Even though we're deferring on some of these things, and maybe not the outbuilding, maybe not that one, but we've got other things that are going to keep costing, more money than what we have set aside.
Okay.
I'll show you here in a minute when we look at the funds. 57, the refrigerator, I don't support that right now. And then I don't support the 57 workstation either right now. That's another one of those scoping projects that we would need to look at. And the HVAC upgrade, another one that we'd like to get some scoping on at 57. The A&E contract fees at 76,000. We do need to replace our SCBA compressor here. It's dying. In fact, we've had to repair it 2 or 3 times over the last couple of months just to keep it functioning. We'd like to look at adding a decon washer, an SCBA decon washer. This would improve for the health and well-being of all the firefighters. We're doing the same thing over at 61. So we have one in the West and the East Battalion, or not at 61, but it's up in Shoreline.
How old is that compressor at 51? I remember teaching the academy here in 2019, it being pretty new.
I don't know. I just know that it's breaking. It's not a very, I don't think it, because I asked too, and I don't remember the age. I do remember that they said it's not that old, but it's a crappy, it just keeps breaking. So buying a better one this next time. In fact, the company that built it is out, they went out of service. They went out of business and they don't support it. And so it's hard to even get parts for it. So I don't think it's that old, but.
Can I walk back to a small item?
Sure.
Station 57 refrigerator.
Yeah, that was on here. That was an asshole. I didn't support it last year.
Yeah.
Or this year.
So having worked at that station, there's generally
Plenty of space?
no.
Oh, it's the other way.
Yeah, there's because when we added the peak hour aid car there,
Mhm.
increased the staffing at that station. So the normal staffing at that station that used to be 5 is typically 7. And if you compare that was like the same staffing as your typical staffing at say station 64, which has 4 fridges. So the situation that they perpetually run into at station 57 is they just don't have,
Bleeding over
for all
to
the
the-
shifts,
Okay.
to,
Is there
So
space for a 4th fridge?
well, that would have to be figured out. There'd have to be some figuring on how to do it, but it is a minor, I'll say, quality of life, just hassle for the employees there on an ongoing basis. So since it's such a small budget item, I guess I'd advocate leave it in and just.
We
let
might have to
those-
do other work to make it work.
Yeah, so maybe, I would just say it would be something that would make life nicer for those individuals who are stationed at 57.
Okay, well, this is the opportunity if you want. It is minor in the whole scheme of things. Would you like to?
I'd recommend adding.
Okay, I'll probably bump it up to 5,000 just in case there's some electrical work that needs to get done.
Yeah, I mean, I think there will have to be some space planning too to figure out.
Okay. Well, this could be included in that scoping work too.
Unless, yeah, because I mean, as that station sits right now, there's not a lot more room in the kitchen for that to go. There
Yeah,
probably would have to be.
You'd almost have to go,
There probably would have to be a little.
but there's a
bit
door
of-
there.
Around the corner where the food lockers are, there'd have to be some,
Yeah.
maybe some minor structural stuff besides just buying a fridge and plugging it in, so it might make more sense to do in the context of that scoping to say what work is required to make it happen, but
Okay.
I wouldn't drop it off the radar screen.
Okay. Thanks for the feedback. And then the last one was, we're looking to upgrade and, well, not just upgrade, add lockers here and replace them. There's a bunch of people working out of this, station now, and we don't have enough locker space. So I can't believe how much they want for lockers, just even regular lockers, but 17 grand or 17.5 for that. Total is just under 1.6 million. And any questions? Any questions from the other commissioners as well on any of these items?
I don't have any questions. I would like to see the refrigerator stay in there along with Commissioner Admin, even if we can't get to it right away. I think we want to save a space for it.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely have, if this all gets approved, we'll have, our plan would be to get an architect on board and an engineering firm, so that we can get some planning on what these things are gonna cost and actually get them done. Because we've been running into, this as a barrier for some of these other projects, so, we can certainly include this in. So,
Okay.
Yeah, it could be possible, you could talk to Chief Oakstein, it might be possible if there is a way without, any sort of structural.
There might be,
to make,
yeah,
so, thank you for including.
yeah. Well, this is your budget, so.
So Chief, am I reading this accurately? We budgeted 2 million last year, but only spent 1 million.
No, it was proposed was 2 million. We approved 1 million. I don't know. I don't have a year to date. So we cut it about in half because there was a lot of asks in there. So a lot of these things are getting deferred. So, we're going to see another 2 or 3 years of some higher level, catching up on projects.
New AEDs coming soon.
New AEDs is a big one in early 26. I don't have to budget for it next year, but 2026 it's I think almost $400,000 for AEDs. So that's going to be a big deal. So, this number and the number from the commissioner budget auto populate, and I'm going to go to the fund balances. It goes into here and so forth. I'll come back to this after I talk about how we're doing overall. So, so this is how, and I added 2024 here, just so that you have some comparison here. Went up a little bit on the Board of Commissioner expense budget, about a 1% increase in the portion that goes to shoreline. Up on the MIH, which I already mentioned, the transfer of the benefits, that's that retirement payout. The capital, that's the capital expenses that we're budgeting for this year. The bond payment is in here. This is a template that you guys have used, so I haven't changed it. So it's a little clunky for me to, use, but I was trying to keep it in the same, model that you guys are used to. And that includes the
Chief, I'm sorry,
the bond payment.
looking at that transfer of the capital fund,
The 1.6.
the previous year of 3 million. I thought that the proposed 2024 was 2 million, but in actuality, we only did 1 million.
That was, I'd have to look at this to see exactly what the numbers were, but the $1 million, the $1 million that we kept in the budget, that was from, some of this was money that we transferred out of other reserves and into from, like, for example, we had a lot more in our rainy day fund, and we transferred money into the capital fund because we were way behind on the capital fund. So that $1 million that we had proposed isn't the full amount of what we transferred in to build up and you'll see it here in a sec under the fund balance. The general obligation bond, there's a payment here and there's a revenue here. So it cancels out, and then you see the effective tax rate for both with the bond and without the bond. These revenues are the BLS transports, GMT, the King County EMS, and the portion of shoreline contract revenue. These all show up on the shoreline budget to counter, because these are direct payments into the shoreline budget. So I track it there as well, but I put it here so you guys can see within your budget what it looks like. Then we've got some interest, some miscellaneous revenue. This tax revenue is with the most up-to-date AV that we got today at 70 cents, which is what the lid lift approved. And then I manually changed the fire benefit charge to make this net close to equal to 0. So, okay, so any questions on this before I go to the fund balances? Okay.
Maybe in case anybody, probably everybody listening knows, but just the reason for the tax change and the benefit charge change was just because we had the levy lid lift.
Correct. The fire levy is now set. It's at 70 cents. It's not, we're not adjusting that. It's going to be 70 cents times whatever the AV is that we have. And then we can play with the fire benefit charge to adjust for balance. So the fund balances here. So our unplanned loss of revenue, the rainy day fund, if you will, it has a little bit above, what we need by about $79,399. And so we don't need to make any transfers in. We're okay. We're a little heavy, but that'll help us if we don't do the RFA next year. We'll probably get close to in 2026 of having to do a transfer or get close. The benefits fund, this is Dawn, and looking at.
Can you go back to the last one for a second? It doesn't say, it says beginning balance 2,500,000 and then ending balance is $2 million, but it doesn't show the transfer out.
No, yeah, I didn't populate that. That was. Are you talking about the transfer out to the capital?
Yeah, I'm just saying it. Where's the 500,000? Where's the
594,000 going in the next 2 months?
That's the one I talked to you about, where you added instead of subtracted.
No, I thought that was down below. You were talking about the capital fund.
I just wanted to make sure I understand what's going on with
Dawn did this. I'm sorry. I'll find out.
okay.
So I should know this. The reserve fund. Okay. I'm sorry that I don't know. I apologize.
And what's
So
remind me of our contribution to that fund each year.
So it's basically at 5% of the shoreline expense fund.
So that's
So
what we want.
That's how I set the balance needed.
But our contribution is just.
You don't have to contribute anything.
To achieve that $2 million.
Correct. So, but you don't have to transfer this. This is still a fund that you guys are managing. Just part of that ILA contract, the negotiations that occurred with the ILA contract was I was like, I need a transfer of money because I'm taking on all this more expense. I need to have, and I didn't want to decrease the amount of reserves that we had for rainy day reserves. Because that affects our bond rating, it affects a bunch of things, and I wanted to maintain at least 15%. So basically, we Shoreline maintains 10%, and North Shore maintains 5% at least. And in case there is a rainy day.
But we don't have a targeted amount in the budget that's being contributed to that fund each year.
No, it's just a matter of whether or not we need to transfer money in. And if we do, then we budget for that transfer. So like in 2023, as we were finishing up the budget for 2024, there was extra revenue in that fund that we didn't need as much, and then we needed it more in the capital fund, and so we transferred money in. Does that make sense? Okay. The benefits fund, again, this is Dawn. Well, all of this is Dawn. She's an expert at this stuff. So the left one liabilities is about 2.2 million, and that's the retiree payout to combine. It should be 25 and 26, not 26 and 27. The payment. Got the years wrong. Capital. I lumped everything together. It was too difficult to try and keep things separated out. In our capital expense, that expense, that's where everything is kind of spent, separated out. So I lumped things together. There is a transfer of money that Dave actually picked up on. There's this year to date of what we've spent, and then the remaining, it doesn't make sense, except there's a transfer in there too that Dawn made. And then we're projecting that we're going to have about 2.3 million left at the end of this year. I put 1.9 million in there. That was just kind of a ballpark. We actually need more than that, but that's what the rescue or about. The rescue is going to cost a little bit more than that actually. But that we need at least that amount to cover the rescue payment in 2026. What it means is that with the transfers in and all that, we should have about 400,000 more than that in the at the end of the year if everything pencils out the way that I'm identifying here. So we would have some extra money theoretically in 2026 to help us cover some of those deferred projects and so forth that I've got. It's only 400,000, and that's not exactly because the rescue is not exactly 1.9 million, but I'm trying to look not just next year, but what 2026 looks like as well.
I know everything's up in the air with regard to, what happens with the RFA and all that, but I think maybe kind of getting where he was going with this question is, it seems like if we had like a longer, I don't know if it's possible to have like a longer term projection on these different balance needs that we would, have like an annual contribution just to make sure all of these are kind of stable.
I have a 20-year plan in the RFA. I've built that,
Okay.
but that's with us all together.
Right.
Right now, we are in a very interesting situation.
Interim situation.
Yeah, I built this budget so that it could be standalone, so that if the RFA doesn't happen, that we're not all of a sudden scrambling going, where are we going to come up with a bunch of money, and being right back where we were, last year, looking at trying to figure out how we were going to fund things. So, I'm trying to look at kind of a sweet spot of like not going too far, but not shorting ourselves too much. And so it's difficult. But either way, that money would be the seed money to put us in the right spot for that 20-year capital replacement plan. If North Shore, if we do the RFA and North Shore comes in with almost no dollars, and I have budgeted for, and I can't remember off the top of my head what that money is coming in, then our fund is going to be underfunded. And so there needs to be some money that comes in as seed money, for the capital projects.
Well, yeah, I totally agree with you. I guess
Okay.
my thought was, given what we know about some of the capital stuff that could be coming up, are we putting enough for the longer term?
Well, that's a great segue to that number down there at the bottom. So let me work through this last one here too. This is a general expense fund, what we carried over in 24, revenues, expenses, projected end of the year. This number is what we need to get in 2025 to get to the first half taxes. Okay. And then, so if we start at say that's the minimum that we need. We start at 56 or 5.6, which is above the target, which is good. The 2026 balance. So I also look at what we need at the end of next year to cover the first quarter of 2026 as well. So I put a 5% inflator on this number, which means that we have about 511,000-ish of extra carryover that's unallocated at this time. My proposal would be to put it into the capital and build that up a little bit more. And we'd have about 900,000 in the capital above what we're roughly needing for the rescue, which will help us cover some of these other deferred capital projects. And if the RFA happens, then it's 900,000 of extra seed money that would come in. And actually that's still short of what I've targeted for the seed money. I want to say it's like 1.2. I could look it up, but it's in that 20-year plan. So my proposal would be to put the 511,000 into the capital as well.
The excess carryover.
Yeah. But it is right now extra and unallocated carryover. The other option would be to buy down the levy rate or put it in some other fund that we could put in the rainy day fund. You could, but if we're gonna keep it, I would just put it in the capital fund because the other funds are sufficiently funded right now. And that would make the most sense because that's where we're going to be spending money.
Well, I think, Chief, that, that makes sense looking at the expenses, the rate of increase in the cost of apparatus, the rate in increase in the cost of capital projects, that's where that money is going to be.
Yeah. And like I said, I think we have probably about another 2 or 3 years of elevated. Hopefully we get caught up and we don't have anything else that's major that's going to break or that we'll have to. If we can get through the next few years, we should be at a better place. We're trying to get in front of the wave now. So that would be my suggestion or proposal.
At the end of your presentation.
That's the end of my presentation. So I'll go wherever you guys want to go.
So is this also the staff recommendations?
Yes, I've worked with Chief Hochstein on the capital side. I've worked with Dawn on some of the funds and the Board of Commissioner expense budget, and then the rest of it's been on me. I don't have as much staff that weighs in on the North Shore budget as I do on the Shoreline budget. But this is a collaboration of at least a few different people.
Gotcha. Okay. So Commissioner Admin, did you have any more questions?
I think there's an opportunity for board discussion on 4.6. So I've asked my question.
Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and move on to public comment if there is any.
Yeah, just the next agenda item is staff recommendations for the 2025 tax levy and benefit charge assessment. That's what this is. Okay.
What I kind of encompassed all of this.
All of those were together. Okay, thank you. So yes, public comment. We have one public comment in person.
Okay.
So this is Dave Merritt. Thanks for the opportunity. My main concern, I've mentioned earlier about what is a capital project, what's maintenance on the station. I still think you should look at our door, locks, maintenance, or they have capital purchase. But a bigger issue is, as you move towards an RFA, which it seems like the board's inclined to do, it'd be nice to know what your actual contribution would be to make that a solvent RFA as far as reserves. Because when we worked with Bothell on trying to get mergers, that was a big issue. But I would also say that if you're going to middle of next year, you're going to be in an RFA and everybody's paying for everybody else's expenses as one unit. Then a couple things don't make too much sense to me. One is, why would you pay both halves of the employee benefit payouts. That when you bought out the early retirements, that's $98,000. And why would you take the $511,000 in carryover and put that into a capital fund rather than giving it back to your taxpayers? Because that's about a little over $600,000. And I would ask the chief, how much is it per penny of tax authority do you receive per penny? So
You mean,
in other
you
words,
mean how many
much would
dollars per penny?
Right, so how much would $600,000 reduce the tax burden on a citizen? If it was used to buy down the levy, as you noted as an option?
Is it okay to respond?
Sure.
I don't have that off the top of my head. I could compute that. One of the reasons that I thought about after on the retirement thing, because I couldn't think of it when we were going through it, is that that's an obligation that was prior to the ILA that should be borne by the North Shore, just like the LTGO bond. And those things are going to be separated out in an RFA, and so I think that was why Don was suggesting that we just plan on the RFA and pay off that debt out of the North Shore funds.
But it isn't a geo bond.
No, it's not. It's not.
Those are my main
So-
concerns. I'm not going to belabor the process, but I would
So-
really ask the board to consider reducing the tax burden on the citizens rather than just,
Yeah.
putting money into the reserve funds, especially when you don't know what your obligation is with the RFA.
I believe it was 1.2 million, but I'd have to check as to what the contribution is. And North Shore would not have that money as it stands now outside of the rescue that's being purchased.
That'd be the other point. Why, if you're going to be an RFA, why would North Shore Fire Department have to pay for 100% of the rescue truck when it's not being delivered until after you're part of the RFA?
Okay, I'm gonna pause you guys right here because we're very much getting off topic.
Okay.
So, the time, it's hard to time, Mr. Marin, when we've got back and forth. So, I think that it might be better if we all came back to the table with maybe a couple, answers that we can give him. And then keep the meeting moving forward.
That'd be appreciated. Thank you.
I'll tell you after the meeting.
Okay, so, Amy, I can't see anyone on the screen, but is there anyone else that wanted to make a comment?
No, it doesn't appear to have any hands raised.
Okay, so then I'm gonna move on to the board discussion and review
Just
of the budget.
To jump in real quick for completing the public hearing on the approval, if we're planning to continue this to another meeting, you'll need to announce that, or we'll need to have a statement just saying public hearing is closed on the budget, and then we can move on from there.
So I thought we had to do that after the board discussion. Did I get that mixed up?
We're on,
Agenda.
yeah, we're on number 4.6.
Oh, okay, I think I jumped ahead in the budget. We're not done with the public hearing.
Okay,
Apologies
keep
there.
me on track though, because I don't know. Okay, so then I'm gonna go just by the commissioners. Commissioner Webster, did you have anything you wanted to discuss regarding this?
Yes, I just had one thought. We have some carryover, and I think in previous years we used some carryover to pay down our GO bond, and that helps the taxpayers. Is that something we could look at doing in this process?
I can ask. I don't know if are you positive that we've done that in the past?
I remember something about that going on.
You'd have to have well, actually, you could probably buy it down. You can't, sometimes you can't pay it off early. It would depend on the language in the setting up of the bond. But I don't know what our rate is, but I know it's really good on the bond. I'm not so sure that that's.
Okay, it's just my thought is that if we're rolling towards an RFA and this is a North Shore expense, the GO bond, and we have the rollover from the North Shore, that it would be usable. we don't have to use it all, but if it can, that's one of the ways we can give back to our citizens, just as a thought.
The only thing I've mentioned it before, I just want to be very clear about this. The only way that this works in the long-term RFA is to make sure that there is enough seed money, enough money that comes out of the capital reserve in North Shore to pile into the resources with Shoreline to fund those expenses the way it's planned. If we take the 511,000, that leaves 400,000 of discretionary funds, and that is not nearly enough. So I just want you to keep that in mind.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Just in the capital fund, it leaves that.
Correct. If you take the rescue out.
Well, I can maybe, in the context of this budget discussion, can we elaborate a little bit more on, like, okay, let's assume that we're moving into the RFA. And what is the? Sorry. All right. What is the money that we have to have ahead that, I mean, are we just basically responsible for kind of maintaining our reserves as they stand, or is there a separate, like, what is the process? What is the process of combining those accounts? Like, how much do we have to have kind of set aside just for that process of
Just for the capital or for all?
For all, for
that is
is that in the context of this budget discussion right now?
No, because that needs a robust conversation with both boards about risk and what those reserve funds are, and so that they're got it. So that thanks, Amy. That's going to be more of a robust conversation that you need to collaborate with both boards to figure out what the level of risk, for example, rainy day fund. So let's just say that we have what, 2 million and Shoreline and
2.5 million, right?
yeah, I gotta figure that out. I gotta figure out why that's not adding up. So 2.5, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter for this conversation. Let's just say it's 2.5.
Sure.
And Shoreline has 5 million. Do we really need 7.5 million in our reserve and our rainy day fund? Or is there a better level that is less, that is okay for the risk and liability of the rainy day fund? Same with all of these. What is the level that we want to have those funds? And that needs to be a collaborative conversation between both boards and actually looking at all those reserve amounts. The capital fund, I can tell you what the capital fund needs to be, because I've done that 20-year plan with all the stuff in it, outside of the rescue. And so I know what that looks like and what we need there. And if we have extra, we have extra, or if we're short, we're short, and we'll have to come up with whatever that, increasing the contribution or increasing the seed money, or there's different ways of doing it. I think I've shared with you guys the 20-year capital plan, at least in the past, at least I've shown it to you. So that's a bigger conversation than what we're talking about here tonight.
So basically right now, outside of the general fund, if we went with the proposed fund balances and they were accurate, we would be going with 2 million in the unplanned loss revenue fund, 2.2 million in the benefits fund, and 2.3 million in the capital fund.
Correct.
And then you're anticipating in 2026 a big hit to the capital fund for the Rescue 151 purchase, which is
rescue and any deferred facility, those things that we're deferring. That's why I'm saying we've got at least a couple more years of, probably more like 3, of increased capital needs.
But if we're under an RFA, those would be combined needs.
Except for the rescue, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Byers, did you have any questions for the chief?
No, I don't have any questions this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Pratt?
No questions, just kind of a general comment about our revenue sources. I think I asked this question before, but I noticed that both our GBMT money and our
went down.
Transport money income went down.
Yeah.
And just asking you to provide some sort of explanation or justification, or like what's going on there?
Just not doing as many transports as either that, or we're either transports are down, or more ambulance transports and not 8-car transports. Or we just were too optimistic with our forecast. This is a kind of a very big guess going in. And we're short this year. In 2024, we're short, which is why we decreased the budget amounts for next year. Now, we should be increasing our transport fees as well, which we've already passed in Shoreline. So that should help with this. But I didn't want to be over budget again. So I felt like this was again, this one, I relied on Rachel Garlini, who runs all of our BLS transports and GMT. All those, I said, please give me your best guess at these. And she was the one that gave me those numbers.
Okay, I just, you know, I know in other organizations, the fee for transport that fire departments charge is significantly less than private ambulance, like 50-60%.
Typically, yes.
Less, right?
Typically.
Which is good for our citizens, but is there room to make a more aggressive increase and still be significantly under what private ambulance charge might be?
Right. We could increase it. There is some room. I don't know exactly how much room is, because we're about to finalize or do the TriMed ambulance contract. And TriMed came back and tried to actually lower their ambulance rates to be more commensurate with what Zone 1 is charging overall, kind of an average. So I don't know if there's very much room, but I can look into it if you'd like. Okay.
Do you dig into the what the contribute? I mean, you must have insight into like how many transports there were, or how many were private ambulance versus.
Yeah, we track all that.
So maybe the ratio of private ambulance transports has just gone up, or.
I can look into. I don't.
Okay.
That's really in the.
Sure, yeah.
In the.
So I have a process question. Just with regard to our time frame on this budgeting process, because I have at least one kind of big question mark that it sounded like you needed to do some research to resolve, which is just what's happening with the reserve fund.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like we'd be able to approve this evening with that question mark.
I'm not asking you to approve it.
Right. So
this is draft. This is just
perfect. So that's my question is,
yeah.
How much time do we have for
19
discussion of these issues and making these types of decisions about what we want to do? Because I feel like for me, the big question marks are getting that question answered and then figuring out what we want to do.
I'll bet this included the transfer to the capital. I'll bet that's why it's less. I'll bet I bet that's what it is. But I will find out for sure.
Yeah, it's close. It's just it's off by like $100,000.
Well, we also transferred money from someplace else too, I think in the benefits fund.
So I guess my big question would just be to understand that fund transfer, and then
I should have Don here tonight.
Sounds like we need to have a kind of a board policy discussion of what we want to do with that the carryover.
I think that's, I mean, and you don't have to decide that tonight, but here's what I need is I need the feedback so I can come back with a very finalized draft for your approval at the next meeting. Now it can even be tweaked in the next meeting verbally. I just need to know at the next meeting so I can do any final tweaking and then get all the paperwork into the county. But the problem that I have is that I need resolutions passed at this next meeting as well, which means that we need to kind of at least have some of the numbers, be accurate, especially on the revenue side. The revenue is really what drives a lot of the resolutions. Now there is time to throw in. There is enough time that we can throw another special meeting in if for some reason we wanted it between the 19th and the end of the month, on the 26th, if we wanted to go another Tuesday. So we could, but I'd really like to not push it all the way towards the end. If we're, I've got some notes here. I can share with you offline. I can email you guys, the answers to these questions and all that. And then I will finalize a draft budget, and I can share that with you guys too. And then we can, theoretically, not that you can't reply all, but you can, if you have more questions or more input that you want me to consider, I can do that. But I'd really like to try and get this done on the 19th. So that I don't have any lingering, or we don't have to have another special meeting or something.
And Chief, is that something you can fold in Mr. Marin's answers that he was looking for?
Yeah, I think I only have one more question that I need to answer with him. I'll do tonight after we're done.
Perfect. Okay.
I
Okay.
believe.
Well, I guess from my standpoint, it seems like the biggest policy decision is what we want to do with the carryover.
Right.
And so there's been some options presented of reduced benefit charge, reduce transfer to capital funds, reduce the GO obligation, or pay down the GO fund. I guess is that something we want to discuss this evening, or is that something we want to have discussed at the next meeting?
Again, my proposal is to move into capital. If you want to buy down the rate, I guess I could support that too. I would not suggest buying down the GO bond. We only have 2 more years on it. And it's a low interest rate. I don't know if that's really, it's not going to do much. I don't believe it'd be doing as much. If you wanted to provide relief to the taxpayers, I would buy down the levy rate, the equivalent levy rate, before moving money into the GO bond. I'm going to reiterate though, we are short. If the RFA happens and we don't put that money into the capital fund, we are short with what we need to make the RFA work on the capital fund. I just want to make sure that you understand that.
Okay, so then I'm gonna move on and conclude this public hearing.
Lisa,
I think that's premature.
yeah, I think we need to have more discussion on this so that we can maybe
Give some direction.
come to some kind of a consensus.
During this meeting, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It's all right.
So I think for me, it's kind of hard to make too many decisions without those kind of final numbers and tweaks. But did any of the other commissioners have anything to add?
I think the biggest issue that we're discussing here is just what we want to do with the carryover. So.
Yeah, I think it's that $500,000, right? And where that should go, what it should be used for, and things are not getting less expensive, right? And it feels to me like that money needs to be in the capital fund. So I don't think that, a 0.5 cent reduction in the levy rates makes sense if we're then having to contribute more to the capital fund later, and buying down the GO bond also doesn't I don't think gives us the best bang for the buck.
I completely agree with you. Commissioner Byers, what was your opinion on should that stay for the capital?
Yeah, I think I agree with Chief and Commissioner Pratt on this one. I think it seems reasonable to put that into our capital expense fund. That'll better set us up for the RFA that's upcoming.
Okay, and Commissioner Webster, anything to add?
No, I think it'll work good with the capital fund. I still have the question, there's 500-some thousand in carryover. Does that include the $500,000 we set aside that we didn't use? And I forget what item it was.
Oh, the structure.
Yeah.
Training structure.
So we should, that should be in addition to the 500 that you have. Is that not correct, Chief?
No, okay, so to be clear, the general fund has everything that's rolled over in it already.
Okay.
It's not in addition to, but it is one of the reasons why we're carrying an extra. And it's actually, let me be clear too, it's actually 753,000 of carryover that we have extra that's unallocated. The 511,000 is that would be the amount if we prepare for 2026.
Okay.
So
Okay, I'm good.
we
I'm
actually
good
have
where we
700.
going to cap.
Yeah, we actually have 753,000 of extra general fund carryover, which to your question, that 500,000 is in there.
Okay.
It would be in that, which is why we have that much extra, to be honest. Because otherwise, if we had a very balanced budget, that would be next to zero.
Okay.
As to, you know, if all else was, if it was apples to apples. But we're carrying extra, we had some extra savings and carryover, which is why we're in a. It's not great that we didn't address all of the things that we wanted to address this year, but the good news is that we have funds that are available to either to do something next year or wait till 2026 or whatever.
Okay. Well, then on that point, I would go along with putting it in the capital funds at this point.
And Commissioner Adman, what was your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm fine with, putting the extra carryover into the capital fund. I guess my question
Okay.
is that enough direction for you, Chief? Do you need a motion?
No, I don't need a motion right now because we're not approving anything. This is just for me to gather input, perspective, direction, and prepare the next version. And answer the questions.
Okay, so is the board comfortable with me concluding this portion of the public hearing? Yes, okay.
Yes.
And then, Amy, can you just make a notation that we're gonna need a special meeting before the 19th so that we can circle back around to that?
You do. I mean,
It's
you're thinking.
it's gonna be entirely up to your comfort level. Why don't I do this work and I'll send it to you all, and if you feel that a special meeting is needed before the 19th or after the 19th even, then we could throw one in.
Okay,
And I'm at your leisure, so you know, if you want to do it, that's fine. I just need to, I just need to get some answers for you all, so and to take your input and put it into the next version.
okay. So then I'm gonna go ahead and move on. And move on to the board discussion and possible action items.
Yeah, we gotta continue the hearing. We either gotta continue or conclude the hearing.
I thought I just concluded it. Did I not?
If you're satisfied with the public input, which is just if you're satisfied with the public input, then you can close it. If you want to open it or keep going for the next meeting with more public input, we can do so. But I would suggest that if we're waiting until the 19th, public input at that point is just going to be public input. It's not going to be much that we're going to be acting on at that point. But it's entirely up to the board.
Just confirming, Chief, we don't anticipate any substantive changes to the budget as it currently exists.
No.
Besides what we just direction we gave them.
Yes, I need to move the money here. I need to find out if this did include the transfer and things like that, but overall, it's not going to change much.
Refrigerators.
I do need to include, thank you. I got that note. I've got that note. I mean, include refrigerators. So that'll blow up the budget entirely. No. So yeah, yes, it will not change. This is a fairly, I'm gonna say 98.8% there.
Okay, then I am officially going to conclude the public hearing. And then we will move on to board discussion and possible action items.
You could always open up for more public comment too. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move forward on this piece until we can get those questions answered. And
Okay.
then we may have more questions for you. Report from subcommittee from Station 54.
I haven't been by, but I've told that the hydro seeding looks great. Rick, did you?
Yes, yeah, I've been by and the hydro seeding's done and I don't think there's anything more we need to do. It looks good and there's plenty of room for the bus stops and all that. Everything looks good.
Yeah, I'll add that it does look really nice, evenly graded, well hydro seeded.
Cool.
Okay, then on to the report from the RFA Planning Committee.
Not, well, this is you guys, sorry.
Sure, Commissioner Myers, Commissioner Webster, would you like to open or would you like me to open? Okay, what's that?
I was gonna say, go for it.
We concluded our planning last was the 28th.
Yes.
October 28th with a public open house. We had relatively good attendance. There was about 50 people there between in person and online. Chief Cowan gave a good overview and Vice President Ford talked from the firefighter perspective, and I gave a brief comments on just kind of explaining my position and my support for the consolidation and why an RFA is a good choice for us. So we're ready. I don't have the dates in my head, but we're ready to bring it back to the board at our next meeting.
At the 19th.
Yeah.
The 19th and 21st. 19th here, 21st at Shoreline.
Perfect.
There'll be one final RFA Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday, November 12th for the Planning Committee to recommend moving it forward to each board.
Yes.
Any questions from their Commissioner Woolham or Commissioner Admin?
I don't have any.
They're not for me.
Okay, moving on to discussion on updating financial policy 6200. Oh dear Lord. Amy, can you refresh my memory?
This one is not in my wheelhouse. Yes, it's a finance, getting small bidding and new regulations from the state and aligning the policy to be.
I had some of our financial staff work with Matt Paxton, and I think we incorporated all the things in. I don't know where to Aaron, do you have anything from Matt on this, or we might have to table this?
Okay.
No, I didn't. Matt kind
Okay.
of gave me a rundown, but this didn't come up on his radar, so I
Okay.
assumed it was probably been done on his end, but.
I had Dawn and Rachel look at the policy, make some recommendations, and work back and forth with Matt on this. I don't know if we have a finalized version with Matt, and frankly, I think it fell off my radar too a little bit.
I'll let him know it came up tonight, and
It may be on us. I'm not sure. I thought we gave him everything he needed, and and maybe I don't know if he's got a finalized version or not.
I'm not sure. I'll ask him tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to the approval to update policy 1450, the commissioner meeting minutes.
Yeah, this is my item. Amy, do you have that you can share? Or I didn't.
Yeah.
I saw it. But... So, this was essentially about our ability to have some, like, this stemmed from us having the DEI listening session and our ability to have some meetings that are not necessarily recorded. And so I made some modifications. I don't know if the version that you have there, if it shows changes or if that's just the completed.
It's just
policy.
I don't, no,
It's the updated
I
policy.
think it's, I
Okay.
put it in yellow
Okay.
to show where there were additions made.
Okay, perfect. So essentially, this is our policy about meeting minutes and how meeting minutes will be shared and recorded. And really the only changes are that we've outlined that under 5.3, except for executive sessions and specific training sessions or other work sessions as discussed below, board meetings shall be recorded using AV capture or similar. So then you go down below and there was an addition to 6.8, that final paragraph, the board may decide, and this is after I created a draft after our last meeting where we discussed this. I sent it to legal counsel who had some recommendations. I essentially just incorporated the recommendations. So the final verbiage is the board may decide on a case-by-case basis that a meeting or portion thereof will not be reported if the purpose, and I think that it should say recorded. Actually, I think we need to change that to say recorded, not reported. Will not be recorded.
I can change that.
Okay, if the purpose of the meeting or portion thereof is training or work session at which the board will take no final action, and final action is something that has a legal definition. So basically, if it's just a training session or no final action session, we don't have to record it. So if there's some future meetings, such as the DEI listening session.
Go ahead, Commissioner Webster.
I make a motion that we accept the changes in policy 1450 as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Everyone in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Update on capital projects.
I was gonna have Chief Hoekstein, he's very much under the weather.
Yeah.
But I believe we've talked about a lot of things, but, was there any questions that we have not addressed?
I guess my only question would just be. So we have the budget for the 57 generator. That seems like one of our super high priority items.
It's a high priority.
Is that gonna be, where's that, what's the status of that, just moving forward right now? Are we waiting for like more of the architectural thing to get the contract, or are we moving forward with like some other work?
I believe he's still waiting for the electrical work to come back. They don't know what they're
A bid,
well,
or a scope.
a bid and scope and bid.
Okay,
Because we can't just replace the generator. We have to do some other electrical work as well. I think he's still waiting for those things. That was the last update I got from him. He was gone last week and he's sick this week. So I don't have anything more except for what the update I got last week before he left.
okay.
It is a high priority for us.
Now on to the 2025 FBC letter to taxpayers.
Yeah, this was a bit of a surprise. We typically don't have to do this early. But a couple days ago, I got an email from our consultant that said that we needed to have it done by this Thursday. So over the weekend, so I worked on this. I gave a red line version of what we had last year, so you could kind of see, excuse me, what our kind of baseline, our template was, and how I modified it for this year. And I gave you both a red line and a clean version. If you don't approve it tonight, that's fine. Just give me direction so I can get it done before Thursday.
So can we get a motion to approve, or would we like more discussion?
Neil would really like it tonight, at least because I can't do shorelines until Thursday, but I can we can.
I make a motion that we accept it as presented. This is Commissioner Webster.
I'll second that motion. I read over it. Looks good, Chief.
Thank you.
Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Neil, thanks you.
There are no board resolutions, so now we are on to the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Everyone in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Fire chief's report.
I think everything was in there. I don't know if I have any updates unless there's questions.
I don't, commissioners, if you have a question, can you let me know somehow? Okay, I don't see any. Are there any commissioner reports that we haven't covered? Okay. Legal counsel report.
Nothing on my end. I know as far as the RFA plan review, Matt finished his review and sent his suggestions, not necessarily any substantive revisions, back to Brian Snur, who I know you've been working with. So I think that's been out the door. Otherwise, I think we've that's about it from him.
Great. Thank you. Amy, setting of future meeting agenda.
So there is a special meeting of the RFA Planning Committee on Tuesday, November 12th at 5 p.m. here at Station 51 in this room. Then there's a special meeting on November 19th at 5 p.m. and that's here at Station 51. That is of the North Shore Board to pass resolutions related to the fire benefit charge and the 2025 budget. And then the next regular.
I just lost it. The planning committee, or I'm sorry, the
Right,
RFA
right.
plan.
Okay.
I can't believe I just lost that.
Thank you. Okay, so on the 19th, the special meeting will be to pass board resolutions related to number 1, the fire benefit charge, number 2, the 2025 budget, and number 3, the RFA plan. So those will be 3 resolutions.
There's gonna be,
There's a lot. I know there's a
more
lot of
resolutions
like
than that.
individual items, but those are the categories.
Yeah.
And those are all resolutions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
And
in there.
then
Oh,
And
sorry.
then the next regular meeting is on Tuesday, December 3rd, and that will have the standard agenda items. And then the only thing that's a carryover from this meeting is if you want to continue having an update on Station 54. And so no, I'm gonna.
Not unless
go with
Rick
that.
feels, or, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, he's shaking his head no.
That's a
Okay,
no.
so the only carryover item from this meeting is the policy 6200, providing that version to the board to review. And approve.
Perfect. Okay, are there any other comments, commissioners?
I would just say that, probably at the meeting on the 19th or maybe the December 3rd meeting, we need to look at a date near the end of December. We always have kind of that last meeting of the year to pass final vouchers.
Chair,
What's that?
the chair.
That's
board.
in
in
January.
January.
Oh, you do it in January? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very short 10-minute meeting, but yeah,
Okay.
we have to pick a date.
Okay, well then I'm gonna go ahead and say meeting adjourned at 6:40.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.